Hey, happy Halloween. You know, little known fact, Halloween is a sure indicator that November is right around the corner. And you know what that means?
Winter is coming.
That's true, but I was actually talking about the November ballots. I know a lot of people out there are not exactly enthusiastic about these ballots because you think that no matter who wins, you're going to get screwed by some shiesty crook in office. And you're not exactly wrong, so I'm not even going to talk about the candidates. I know if you're going to vote for somebody, you already know who you back at this point, so I'm not going to waste my breath or your time. But there are a lot of important issues on this ballot that have nothing to do with who's going to be bending us over for the next few years, and they deserve some attention. So I'm going to be breaking these down, giving you the ins and outs of each proposal, what the drawbacks are as well as what the benefits are, and I'm going to recommend how you should vote. You don't have to listen to me about how you vote, but I'm going to give you the 411 that you need to know on these issues. So stay tuned. I've taken the liberty of getting an absentee ballot because I love you, and because I'm not going to be in Missouri when this vote goes down, and because I have that absentee ballot, I can show you exactly what the wording of the vote is. After all the candidates and judges, the first thing on the ballot is appropriately titled Amendment 1. Shall the Missouri Constitution be amended to change process and criteria for redrawing state legislative districts during reapportionment, change limits on campaign contributions that candidates for state legislature can accept from individuals or entities, establish a limit on gifts that state legislators and their employees can accept from paid lobbyists, prohibit state legislators and their employees from serving as paid lobbyists for a period of time, prohibit political fundraising by candidates for or members of the state legislature on state property, and require legislative records and proceedings to be open to the public. That's a lot to unpack, but it's also very important, so I'm going to try to make it brief, but stick with me, okay? Look, there is a lot going on in Missouri this year, and any other year this would be the most important thing on the ballot. This is an incredibly ambitious bill, and it wants to clean up the corruption in Jefferson City. It seeks to do so by hitting this problem in multiple ways at once. The first way is to make district maps a little more competitive and a little more fair, and make them reflect how we vote a little better. A lot of people already understand this, and I know that, but a lot of people still don't, so I'm going to address them really quickly. The way political representation works is you have one representative representing you in the United States House of Representatives, but you also have one representing you in the House of Representatives of Missouri. Your address resides in two different districts in Missouri. One district for the United States House and one district for the Missouri House. If one side can manipulate the way that the district maps are drawn, they can give that party a distinct advantage over the other. For example, you could put the majority of the Democrats in a specific region of Missouri into one or two different districts, and then all the other districts would be heavily populated by Republicans, or vice versa. It's been done by both sides in the past, and it's known as gerrymandering. Here's the breakdown. State representation is divided into districts. Districts are redrawn every decade following a census report. A bipartisan panel chosen by the governor redraws the map, but only if 70% of that panel agrees. If they don't, the Missouri Supreme Court appoints 6 judges from the appeals court to draw the map. Now let's think about that for a second. Let's say, for example, you've got a Democrat governor that year, and that Democrat governor wants to give Democrats a distinct advantage in the House by redrawing the district maps in a way that favors Democrats. Well, if he doesn't want to get caught for gerrymandering, and I say he because typically it is, then he could appoint a bipartisan panel but give the Democrats in that panel strict orders not to agree to anything, so they could never reach a 70% consensus on the census and the redrawing of the district maps. This would cause the issue to get kicked over to the Supreme Court, really liberal, who would appoint 6 appellate court judges, who could be very liberal-leaning themselves. They would draw the maps, and nobody could blame the governor or the panel or anyone but those judges for doing so. Pretty slick, huh? What this bill seeks to do is change the office of state demographer to a nonpartisan position, chosen by the state auditor. In doing so, the bill hopes to prevent the districts from being drawn with the intent or result of denying or abridging the equal opportunity of racial or language minorities to participate in the political process or diminishing their ability to elect representatives of their choice. It hopes to do that by requiring what they call partisan fairness. Parties shall be able to translate their popular support into legislative representation with approximately equal efficiency. And doing so fosters competitiveness. Parties' legislative representation shall be substantially and similarly responsive to shifts in the electorate's preferences. The goals of this bill are to make the state demographer an unbiased party, place an emphasis on partisan fairness and competitiveness, make district voting better reflect the political views of the voting public, and remove the political advantage enjoyed by whichever party is in power when the census report is issued. This part of the amendment wants to revolutionize district mapping by taking out whatever doesn't work and keeping whatever does. They're not going to be replacing the entire system. Instead, they're hoping to overhaul it and tweak it in a way that better reflects how we vote and how we feel. So here's what stays the same. Districts must remain contiguous and compact. Contiguous means whole. So, for example, you won't have District 13 right here, and then a little island of District 13 off the coast of the mainland, and maybe District 15 in the middle or something like that. And compact means roughly the same size and population. This amendment would only affect state congressional district maps. U.S. congressional district maps would remain completely unaffected by this. Another thing that stays the same is that even though the demographer is the one who's now drawing the maps, those House and Senate redistricting commissions would still exist, and they would still be able to make changes to those maps, but only if they have a 70% approval first. Essentially, it's taking the job away from Congress and putting it on the demographer, but Congress would still be able to make changes if they felt strongly enough that they needed them.
But wait! There's more!
I told you there was a lot to unpack. The people behind this proposed amendment are not content to simply prevent parties from cheating by manipulating district remapping. Nah, they are taking aim directly at individual corruption by making it harder to use political office as a get-rich-quick scheme. And one of the ways that they're doing that is with campaign finance reform. The second part of this amendment would officially forbid Missouri State Legislature passing laws allowing unlimited campaign contributions for said state legislature. It would establish caps on campaign contributions for candidates and their committees for a single election. For state senator, it would be $2,500, and it would be $2,000 even for state House representatives. It also prohibits making or accepting contributions using a fake name, using the name of another person, or giving the money to another person to give to the candidate. And they still ain't done. They also want to do something about one of the biggest methods of bribery in the Missouri government: lobbyists. This proposed amendment would make two key changes to Missouri's lobby laws. The first would be to require state legislators and legislative employees to wait no less than 2 years after the conclusion of their last legislative session to become a paid lobbyist. This is an incredibly important change because that's what corrupt politicians do. They get in office and then they start shopping around for somebody who's going to pay them a lot more money than they're currently making once they're out of office. And when they're out of office and a paid lobbyist, they use the connections that they've made with other legislators, and they rely on them to get lunches and meetings and dinners. They talk to them inside their offices, out of their offices, at fundraisers, at parties. They're friends. And other corrupt politicians who are currently in office would listen to them because they want to get the exact same kind of job when they get out of office. But let's say you're an honest politician and you go into office really trying to make a difference. Well, after a little while, you might find yourself stifled by even your own party. Nobody's working with you to make policy changes or pass new bills. And then as your term starts to come to an end, a lobbyist will come to your office and they'll say, you know, the clock is ticking. And if you want to make a change, you're going to need to get reelected because this has been blown. So I tell you what, if you toss a couple of votes our way, we'll toss a couple of dollars or thousands of dollars your way. And then you think to yourself, you know, some fresh-faced politician is going to come in and take my place and they're going to meet the exact same problem that I faced. At least I know what's going on. I'm in the trenches. I know how this works now and I can do something about it. So you take the money in order to make a difference. But now you're beholden to them and suddenly it becomes awfully addictive. This is how corruption starts. Giving people money for their influence. Let's get rid of it. And that's not to say that all lobbies are bad. I mean, there are some lobbies that I stand behind and I'm fully supportive of, but they still shouldn't be able to buy votes. The second change would be a cap on the value of the gifts that lobbyists can give legislators. It would place a $5 value on these gifts. Obviously, nobody's going to be looking into every individual gift lobbyists give legislators, so this isn't going to affect anybody who gets like a $6 Subway sandwich and gives it to a legislator. But if anybody looks into those gifts, then they might find something that's highly overvalued. And that's important because we want to be able to do that. And if somebody is accepting those kinds of gifts, we want to be able to say, you're out. You know, a few years ago, the Missouri House of Representatives was actually trying to make sexual favors from lobbyists a legal thing they could receive as a gift, as long as they listed it on their taxes. Something has got to change. So, bottom line, this is what Amendment 1 does. Amendment 1 removes bias from voter districts, makes the districts better reflect the will of the people at large, removes money as a motivating factor for legislative decisions, reduces the influence of agenda-based officials, reduces the sway lobbyists have over legislators, prevents politicians raising funds on any state-owned property, including our capital. So my voice is going. The final part of Amendment 1 is to ban fundraising for or by candidates for state legislature on state property. Now, naturally, you might be wondering why this was thrown into the amendment with all these other parts, and it's because this would essentially make it illegal for our politicians, at least our state legislators, to discuss how they're going to sell their vote while they're in their offices. This is pretty rad, and of course it doesn't prevent them from discussing how they're going to sell their votes to lobbyists, corporate tycoons, or rich private citizens while over dinner at a restaurant, or dinner at home, or even in a park or on the sidewalk. Well, actually the sidewalk might be illegal, but it does make sure that when they're in the office, they're focused on doing their job. It's just a really cool message to send. It's telling people that we're not going to put up with this anymore, even though we still have to put up with it to some degree. This proposal is awesome, and you should make Amendment 1 a yes vote, because it does a lot to keep our legislators honest. It reduces the influence of lobbyists. It makes sure that people in office are in the office doing their job and not worried about making more money. And there's nothing in there that hurts anyone. When was the last time you saw any candidate for anything fundraising in the park? Amendment 1 is great. That's it for now. I'll see you next time with Amendment 2.